You are listening to a free version of the Majority Report with Sam Steeder. To support the show and get another 15 minutes of daily program, go to majority.fm, please.
The Majority Report with Sam Steeder.
It is Wednesday, October 31st, 2018. My name is Sam Steeder, the five-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal, in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, mourners in Pittsburgh tell Trump to go home. Conservatives try and set up Mueller with fake assault charges. I wonder why. Meanwhile, millennials not exactly prepared to vote. Mattis calls for a Saudi ceasefire in Yemen, with, of course, a 30-day window to do as much damage as they can.
Both sides.
Department of Interior Zinke is the subject now of 18 different government investigations. That's high, isn't it? Utah paying state employers to invade Mexico and bring home prescription drugs.
Give them diseases.
Trump plans to scale back U.S. support on overseas women's health programs. And new polls. Senate a reach. But governors looking good, and those governors could expand Medicaid to millions of Americans. All this and more on today's program, ladies and gentlemen. A little bit of house cleaning up front. I should tell you that for people who are recent listeners, I don't know if we haven't done this in a year now. Is that right? We didn't do it for April Fools.
Right.
Up until the past year, really, we would on Halloween. I mean, I don't want to ruin the illusion, but on Halloween and on April Fools, we would do a, well, I mean, I don't want to ruin it for people, but we would do a show wherein, well, we wouldn't.
We would go to an alternate dimension.
Thank you. I don't know exactly. Yeah. Yes, or an ultimate. I should say an alternate dimension would come to us. We had no part in it. It was a huge mistake, and we would end up doing a right-wing show. And
now coming live from the Stoughton area Jenny Craig studios, it's the Ken and Ken show.
Well, that's. I don't know how you had a recording of that, Matt.
Craig.
That's weird.
Jenny Craig.
But I just am too annoyed, frankly, with the right, to be honest with you, to do that today. So, but I feel quite comfortable that by April we'll be able to get back into the mood for that. But with everything that went on this weekend and lead up to the election, we decided not to do that. Now, with that said, I would stick around towards the fun half of the program because who knows what could happen on Halloween.
We're not sure we have the situation fully under control.
It's All Hallows Eve. Well, I guess that was last night. But, I mean, whatever. You know what the point is. Folks, Blue Apron's mission is to make incredible home cooking accessible to everyone. You can make dinner in as little as 20 minutes with quick and easy recipe options, perfectly portioned ingredients delivered right to your door. No meal planning or shopping required. Whether you're looking for quick or easy meals or a full culinary cooking experience, Blue Apron lets you choose from a range of recipe options. Get out of your cooking rut and experience the joy of new recipes. We've had Blue Apron delivered to our house for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years. We do 2 meals a week, and we now do one of the sort of more involved one of the quicker ones, and we decide on the fly. what we're going to do over the course of the week. It has been a huge boon to me, as half the time I'm a single parent. The other time, it's like I have no children. And but the times when I do have the children, this makes it super easy. I felt bad because I was ordering in a lot, or fish sticking it too much. Well, fish sticks aren't that bad. I don't want to be, but this gives me the opportunity to easily cook and to cook really good meals. And the portions are perfectly proportioned. We don't have extra food afterwards. A little bit of leftovers, but I'll end up eating it all anyways. So from my perspective, this is fantastic. I don't have to do the shopping. It comes in and it's very reasonable. Had things like tomato basil pesto pizza, stir-fried sweet chili chicken. That was actually delicious. Seared steaks, homemade steak sauce, and seared beef dumplings and jasmine rice, which was a huge hit with Mila. She loves the dumplings. You can check out this week's menu. Get your first 3 meals free. Yes, the first 3 meals free at blueapron.com/majority. Why do they give you 3 free meals? Because they know you're going to find it to be both fun to cook and delicious. It's blueapron.com/majority. Get your first 3 meals free. Blue Apron, a better way to cook. I should not have said the word stir-fried sweet chili chicken, because now my mouth is watering again and I can't stop thinking about that food. All right, well, yesterday, Pittsburgh is obviously still in the grieving process. The mayor of the city had asked Donald Trump to please wait before he came. The rabbi emeritus of the Tree of Life had asked Donald Trump, please wait. The president of the synagogue, though he didn't invite Donald Trump, was like, of course, he's the president. If he comes, we will greet him. But it's pretty stunning that ostensibly, right, like even the illusion that this is somehow for the families. And there were several families that said, we have absolutely no interest in this guy coming. But the illusion, now, of course, every president, every politician who goes to these things, there's at least, and I don't know how it breaks down in their minds. And as cynical as I am, I still believe there is a portion, a percentage in which what motivates them is that they know they can go and help people. That it makes a difference to have the president of the United States come and offer his or her condolences. This guy just, I'm going.
Yep.
Because he didn't want to feel either slighted by them by not going, or he thought that it was an important thing for him to do politically.
Can I say the paper towels?
I mean, honestly.
I don't want to be left out, though.
Right. I mean, honestly, but there was no, to have just about everybody involved in this tragedy say, just wait a week. Just wait so that we can deal with what we have to deal with. You're a controversial figure. Please don't come. And to completely ignore it is stunning.
Leadership.
What is also stunning is to see these mourners hit the streets and basically just put their bodies in the streets so that his travelcade cannot pass by. Here's a report from CNN. It is pretty stunning when you think about this, that mourners are out there basically telling Trump, go away.
Yeah, all right, so Caitlin, I want you to stand by, not far away. Miguel Marquez is watching the protests unfolding. Only a few blocks, I take it. Miguel, set the scene for us.
We're less than a block away here, Wolf. This is the protest. There are several thousand people in this protest. Now, it was one protest, then two, and then we got to this area. You can hear those sirens. That is the president now leaving this area. Protesters have been completely peaceful, but there are several different groups represented here. I want to show you, just Eddie, if you just sit around here. This area, that direction is where the synagogue is. all of those sirens you can hear are the commotion that law enforcement are making as the president is trying to leave. It has been completely peaceful, and at this point, it appears that they are actually trying to move these protesters out, which is going to be extraordinarily difficult if they expect to bring the president in this direction. They're trying to back people up. We have seen little more than tears in this neighborhood today, and it has turned into anger as the day has moved on, as people realize that the president is coming. This protest wasn't planned at all 24 hours ago, and in the last 24 hours, it has exploded. We weren't sure how many people were going to show up here. There were very few people who had actually signed up to come, and now there are thousands of people in Squirrel here. Look over here, Eddie. There's somebody's being arrested here. There was a large knot of people who moved toward the synagogue, which is about a block away, and were trying to get through the police cordon. You can see the police cars now trying to move the crowd back. The crowd itself, they are chanting, "Turn your backs."
Hey, Miguel, hold on for a second, Miguel. I want our viewers to hear what they are chanting right now. Let's listen in briefly.
Satisfaction of knowing that they're upset with him, but there is great anger and upset in this area today. And let's just listen to a little of this commotion here. So it appeared to me that the president actually moved off in a different direction, and this was an ancillary unit that was moving down this way. But just thousands of people in Squirrel Hill registering their upset and concern with the president being here, feeling that it just brings the wrong message. Wolf?
There you go. Thousands of mourners, essentially, feeling that the president brings the wrong message. I mean, that's pretty stunning. You have these people who are out there, reacting to a white supremacist, white nationalist going in, gunning down 11 people, and just to hear the words of the anger mounted as they found out the president was coming. That's, this is only several thousand people. But if anybody can point to any dynamic in American history where the people around in a community who have suffered a tragedy like this just out and out reject the visit of the president.
In fact, I think nothing analogous under Obama directly, obviously, but there were always stories of Obama going sometimes to communities that might not have had a huge amount of support for him, and the reports always being like, I didn't vote for the guy, but it's so good he's here. It's been so helpful. Thank you. That was always the case with him.
And obviously there was anger towards George Bush in the wake of Katrina in New Orleans, but the U.S. government was implicated in what happened there.
They did it. That's totally different. They didn't do the hurricane, obviously, but they were complicit in the failures.
They were complicit in the failures of helping people. I mean, there's no one, there's not a similar dynamic here. I mean, it's pretty stunning, although I think one could argue that Donald Trump has at least some complicity in terms of the energizing the narrative that at least this guy embraced and espoused. I mean, he specifically mentioned the caravan, and frankly, that is a non-news story, and that the Jews were responsible for bringing that caravan in, or I guess to southern Mexico. So pretty stunning. Meanwhile, across town, the president of the Jewish Pittsburgh Hospital, or I should say Allegheny General. He is Jewish, and he explains why they treated the terror suspect who gunned down 11 people who attended the same synagogue that he did. And this is from Channel 4 in Britain.
Yesterday, I went up to meet him, and I was just curious as to who is this guy. And quite honestly, he's just a guy. And people say he's evil, he's this. He's some mother's son. And how did he get from that to where he is today? That's going to be a large debate that we have to wrestle with as a society.
Effectively, you were sort of at the head of a team that saved his life.
It may be a bit of an overstatement, but yes, he was severely injured and he got great care here. Many of the people that attended to him were Jewish, and they're heroes. They did like the cops did. They did their job. They went and they confronted the problem, and they were true to their core beliefs, and I'm very proud of them.
And as a doctor, but also as a parishioner of the synagogue, and you looked into his eyes, what did you see?
I just looked at him, and he's like a lot of people that come in here, that they're scared, they're confused, they don't quite understand it. But once again, my job isn't to judge him. Other people give that's a pretty awesome responsibility. My job is to take care of him.
I don't know. It's a fairly impressive response. I don't know that I would have that level of generosity or, I was the president of that hospital. At the very least, his food would be subpar.
It would be funny if he added, he's like, obviously we're spitting in his food.
Right.
And serving him day olds. That should go without saying. But beyond that, we're doing our jobs, and it's an awesome responsibility to understand how a human could become so fundamentally corrupted.
I don't know. I mean, that's I guess maybe that's what it takes to become a doctor, is to, on some level.
I don't know. I've hung out with a lot of doctors. I don't know if they all have that level of.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I don't know what I'm talking about.
I was going to say most doctors I've talked to are like,
I
don't want government coverage.
Right. I thought that was pretty impressive, and so good for them. Good for the city of Pittsburgh. So far, 2 for 2, as far as I can tell. Driving Donald Trump out of there. I think he was maybe out of his car for about 11 minutes in Pittsburgh. So well done. Before we go to anything else, I want to move on to what's going on in terms of the campaigns. I thought this was pretty funny. I saw this on Twitter. Don't know who posted this. But just to give you a sense of just the incredible hypocrisy that is the Republican Party is just through and through. There is, I'm sorry, and I saw the other night Steve Schmidt. Sort of fell asleep in the middle of it because I was just so exhausted. But Steve Schmidt was on Hayes, and he had him on there for quite a while. Steve Schmidt really sort of went all in, as it were, on the Republican Party. And there's a couple of these people who I think I could take a cynical and jaded look at. They realize, like, they can't go any further with the party, and so they might as well go, as far away as they can. Others may have had some, bout of, late stage conscience. I've said in the past that I am fairly impressed with Jennifer Rubin's wholesale retreat from republicanism. There are others I'm a little more skeptical of. Some who I feel like, okay, a guy like Max Boot, he seems to be quite sincere, but I think you should take it to the next step and, recede from public life. I mean, honestly, I don't think you should be sent to, the Gulag or, sent to the Siberia or the Western Front or something like that. But I think that
Fallujah.
If you have spent the better part of your professional career doing stuff that you now realized was heinous, what you got to do on the other end has got to be pretty extreme to make up for that. And I think you got to sideline yourself for a while until you've really worked out. I mean, this is just, look, people can do what they're going to do. I'm not, but this is just my opinion.
I suggested on TMBS that they publish all of their emails they had with Republicans when they were Republicans, just for public perusal.
That's a good idea. That's a good starting point. I mean, there's definitely, my sense is like, it's not enough to write a couple of pieces or even publish a book that you're going to profit on for your reversal. I think you got to do a lot more. Or just say, like, I'm hanging up my gloves. I was fighting on the wrong side for too long, and there's nothing I'm going to do that's going to make up for this, so I'm going to sideline myself. Nikki Haley came out with a tweet, and this is pretty stunning because this is like a triple Lindy as I try and work through the sort of the machinations here. She writes, I've struggled with what happened in Pittsburgh because it's so similar to what happened in Charleston, is she writing, or Charlottesville? Charleston, South Carolina, right. And she's referring to the Dylann Roof shooting in the black church. And she was governor at the time. She says the country was very racially divided at the time. At the time.
Not anymore, exactly.
It was a couple of years ago. The country was really racially divided at the time. Not so much now.
We've been cleaning that up.
We didn't once blame President Obama. Of course, President Obama, the idea, I want you to just contemplate this. We did not blame President Obama for Dylann Roof going in and shooting up people in a black church. I don't know how you can construct that sentence and be conscious. It's not possible. She's super drunk when she's tweeting this. It's 10:30 at night. Maybe she had taken an Ambien, had a couple of glasses of wine. I'm just thinking of myself here. But how do you even construct a sentence that says, we did not blame the black president for the black people to be shot by the white supremacist?
Yeah, that's so generous of her.
It's really generous.
It's magnanimous.
It's super generous.
Actually, Obama will be the first one to say, thank you, Nikki.
Right. We focus solely on the lives lost and their families. Have some respect for these families and stop the blame. So here's Nikki Haley out there giving cover for Donald Trump and bending over so backwards to do so that she actually offers as an analogy the idea of an African-American president not being responsible for what a white supremacist does. Then the added touch of I don't know, is this symmetry or if this is, I don't know how to articulate this. But from June of 2016, which was, I think, just before maybe Trump got the nomination, but it was pretty clear he was going to at that point. The Hill reports, Nikki Haley links Trump's rhetoric to Charleston church shooting. So whatever, I'm going to give you the really generous take. The generous take was that Nikki Haley had a modicum of self-respect and integrity as late as June of 2016. And she completely sold that down the river to join this guy's administration, whom she said in some way may have inspired a white supremacist shooting up a black church. Joined his administration and then leaves and still providing him cover in almost an identical situation. There's a more jaded perspective that she never had any integrity whatsoever. And she just found it at the time she was trying to position herself as actually giving a crap about this.
In a certain sense, that statement made you more valuable to joining my administration.
Yeah, in a way, when you were pretending that you had integrity, that was even better for when you joined my administration. That was actually, you see how that worked?
That's when I really wanted you.
Yeah, that was unbelievable. Check out Michael Wolff.
It's also why Jeff Flake is valuable.
That's why Jeff Flake's valuable. That's why Nikki and I are so close.
Haley said at the time, she said, I know what rhetoric can do. I saw it happen.
Exactly.
And she said about Trump, I will not stop until we fight that man that chooses not to disavow the KKK. This is not part of our country. This is not who we want as president. We will not allow that in our country. Well, oh, wait a second. All right, my mistake, because I'm reading in that Hill report, and it says she had her fingers crossed. Holding her fingers crossed behind her back.
We need to train journalists to look for that better.
Yes, God. But it's written right there. It should have been so obvious to people.
Yeah.
But let's move on there. Good for Pittsburgh.
And now because of these protests, there's going to be even more violence. It's really unfair.
The fact that she still feels the need to align herself with Trump in this way does not bode well for the future. They're all betting on Trump.
They're all betting on the base that is so Trump-like.
Yeah.
She knows when she does that, she's basically saying, like, I realize who I'm going to rely on to make me president someday. And I cannot in any way criticize those people. Meanwhile, around the country, we have
I love
a couple
India.
of races. I mean, look, right now, you heard, I don't know if you heard John from San Antonio call in. Yesterday, we have a situation where there are at least, anywhere between 15 and 20 races across the country that the magic number is 23 to take over the House. 15 to 20 that seem to be, I don't want to say a done deal, but pretty solid. And then there, and I'm painting with a broad brush here. Then there's like another dozen to 2 dozen where it's a toss-up. And, if you were to take a dozen to 2 dozen quarters and toss them up in the air, you would imagine that half more or less would come down heads and half would more or less come down tails. Maybe someone who is a statistician is going to call in and tell me that's wrong because but I'm saying you throw them all at one time. I don't know. But you have a dozen to half a dozen toss-ups. You imagine the odds of winning 9, let's say, are pretty good out of 24. And that would take the Democrats over the 23 threshold. It's also possible in a wave scenario, you win 90% of those toss-ups, and then the Democrats walk away and win 45 seats. So, tough to say. To the extent that there are, things in the balance, the Senate looks like it's going to be tricky. But for the Senate, for the Democrats to take the Senate, it appears that they have to win in Texas. Now, I keep hearing from people from Texas, whether it's reporters or listeners who live there, like things seem really different this time.
We had a guy call last night who said Beto's definitely going to win. And again, it's all energy, but there was some number. I'm sorry I said this, I'm forgetting, but there was some number on voting patterns that actually really was indicative of new people getting to the poll.
If you look at like the early polling, now the thing is with early polling, it's tough to tell what's going on there. Because you don't know if these are people who normally vote during, in an off-year election, who normally vote irregular, but they're just because of all the talk of disenfranchisement and because maybe they're so heated because, Brett Kavanaugh loves beer so much that they want to go in and vote early. So you don't know. When you see early voting strength in the counties that are Democratic leaning in Texas, again, you don't know. You don't know if that's not people who are just like, I'm not waiting until Tuesday because what if I get hit by a bus before then? Or what if I'm, I'm late to work or whatever it is? I'm going to vote early. And you just don't know. So it looks good, but it doesn't necessarily mean anything. But people are excited about Texas. And a big reason why people are excited is because Beto O'Rourke answers questions like this. There was a town hall on MSNBC. I imagine Ted Cruz was invited. I imagine he didn't want to go. And Beto O'Rourke is asked this questioner.
Question.
Hi, Congressman O'Rourke. It's a pleasure to be here before you. As one border native to another, I'd just like to ask you how you're going to address the issue of militarizing the border.
Yeah. This idea, Andrea, that we could send 5,000 U.S. service members to the border and somehow stop migrants, refugees, asylum seekers fleeing the most dangerous countries in the hemisphere, or that we could build a 2,000-mile wall at a cost of $30 billion, where we'd have to take someone's ranch or farm or property through the use of eminent domain to build something that we don't need at a time of record security and safety for border communities like mine in El Paso, perhaps yours, wherever you are on the border. It's ridiculous. And it's, again, this idea we can be governed by our fears, and then we are a very small people. Or we can be known by our ambitions. Remember the proud heritage of this defining immigrant story, state, and experience that is Texas. That's who we are. We can share with our friends and our colleagues in the Senate. El Paso is one of the safest cities in the United States of America, not in spite of, but because we are a city of immigrants. People left their hometown, their family, their comfort, their culture, their country to come here, start anew as strangers in a strange land. Si queremos asegurar nuestras comunidades, no necesitamos muros. Necesitamos tratar a cada persona con respeto y dignidad. Gracias para su pregunta. Gracias, Andrea.
Pretty impressive. And
Suburb Obama going for it.
Yeah. I mean, in the event that this guy wins the Senate race there, I suspect that we're going to be, either way, I think we're going to be hearing a lot more of him in the future, but I think we're going to be hearing more of him in the near future in the event that he wins that race.
And it's an upgrading of centrism. I keep making the point. I mean, a centrist candidate, which he undoubtedly is, who supports single payer, who's been so unequivocal, not only on that, but also on police violence and race issues. If Beto becomes the center.
Texas senator that was a Democrat? Was it Lloyd Benson? I mean, we're talking about.
I think so. And Ann Richards was governor in the early 90s.
Yeah, that early 90s. Lloyd Benson ran against Tomato. I can't even remember his name now, but the vice president wasn't terribly bright. George Herbert Walker's vice president, Dan Quayle. And I think that was the last time we had a Democrat win in Texas. And so this is, he's down in the polls by, I think the last poll I saw, he was down by 9 points, 9 or 10 points. There was one by CBS 11 Dixie Strategies. I'm less inclined to buy that one versus Quinnipiac, where he was up by only 5. Down by only 5. But Cruz seems to be above 50% in both, or is above 50% in both these polls. But you just don't know. There was one from the Texas Tribune that came out a week ago. Cruz was up by 6. So it's possible going into Election Day that Beto is down by 5. Could be down by 5 right now, but closing 4 or 5 points is not impossible if you have a fundamentally different electorate than one that you have seen in the past. And it's hard to imagine that he's not going to bring out voters who haven't been voting in the past, and that really just Ted Cruz hate won't bring out people.
Well, it's a pretty good synthesis right there of a guy who actually does have some charisma and talent and might actually draw some people, combined with the most repulsive figure in American life.
And, in terms of turnout, we still have millennials. It was a NBC News Gen Forward, I don't know what that is, at the University of Chicago survey that came out. It was early October. Maybe that has changed to some degree. There's only 31% of millennials who say they definitely will vote. There's another 26% that say they probably will vote. 23% uncertain. It is, when it's hard for young people to engage. in politics. I mean, there must be something about age that has that makes you more engaged as you get older. I don't know what it is, but older people come out and vote.
Does it make more kind of just intuitive sense? Like the more you know about the world, the more you would show up to a poll?
The older you get, the more vulnerable you feel, the more you have, assets that could be in danger, that you have kids, that, you are more conscious of just like what you rely upon from government. And even if government is not doing, well, particularly if government is not doing what you want, but it's really just the idea that you think government can impact you.
I think we have to do a balance, because I agree with you, and it is on some ways it's mind-blowing that even after a couple of years of Trump, there isn't just a basic sort of response to an emergency.
But that's my point.
No, I
think
understand
there's
your
a
point.
Disconnect.
No, I think
the only reason why you can have those things is that there's a disconnect, that they don't think that it matters ultimately to their lives.
Well, I think that that's true, and you're illustrating the point where like they're wrong, right? Like that's the blaming the electorate argument. And
well,
you're right. No, I'm joking.
I'm not blaming the electorate.
Don't get lost in that. I'm just joking. But you're right about that. Like it's people not accurately assessing their circumstances. And then, conversely, whether or not it works, who knows whether it works? We also know that young people have actually played a massive role in a lot of political and social movements. And of course, what the Democratic Party presents them and the credibility of the Democratic Party is going to play a role as well. So,
well, they're not voting for Republicans either.
Right? Well, no, exactly. No, they're not voting.
Right.
So I'm saying in order to get them out, if maybe it won't work no matter what we do, but Democrats do need to more and more push and sell this substantive idea that like we'll get rid of your student loans as an example.
I clearly they need to go out and push that, and I have a feeling that is that is not low on the list of things that Democratic candidates. Just from what I've seen, obviously healthcare has been the primary one, and that's going to resonate more with older people. Though it should resonate more with younger people.
It should, but I think the juxtaposition,
right.
Frankly, I think if you ran a race that was, to make it really narrow and boring, say like, you know what? Healthcare, I want everybody to have healthcare, and Republicans are going to kick 20 million people off of it. And for younger people, I want a general student loan amnesty because it's ridiculous that we brought you into this economy.
Or free college, so you don't have to get into
and that's it. And if you just hammered those two things, it's like, I remember Tony Blair and Gordon Brown won in 2005 after the Iraq invasion, and they just won on what they called the red lines, and it was literally just NHS spending and a couple of other government areas. They were just like, we're investing more, Tories will cut. We're investing more, Tories will cut. And they won big.
Well, also, I think, not to sound like a broken record, but the single biggest determining factor in whether or not somebody turns out to vote is their income. And young people skew lower income than older people. So that's probably part of it.
That's tough. I guess that may be true. I mean, older people may have more income. That may be it. It would be tough. It'd be interesting to sort of assess on if you could control for that. I mean, I haven't seen studies. Obviously, older people have more money, broadly speaking, because they've been working longer.
And the poor ones die earlier. So the people who are still alive are more likely to be conservative.
Right. But that doesn't necessarily, I mean, right. But it's quite possible that we don't know exactly. I mean, it'd be interesting to look at youth vote and see if the millennials who do vote tend to be more wealthy than the millennials who don't. I mean, I imagine that's probably the case.
I would say so. There have been some interesting articles and polls lately that we should probably dig up. Also, I just pulled up this poll from the Pew Research Center. This is kind of interesting. This isn't just young people. It's all registered voters who didn't vote. But in 2012, the most common reason for not voting was too busy, conflicting work or school schedule. Right, because Election Day is not a national holiday.
Right.
In 2016, it shot up. The reason did not like candidates or campaign issues. shot up way above that as the number one reason people cited for not voting.
I think, both candidates had the highest, I think between the two of them had the highest dislikes of any two candidates running for president.
I don't
These
know
are
if
the least popular.
I don't know if we can draw anything from this, but it's interesting how there seems to be a somewhat reversal between the white youth vote and the black youth vote. The white youth, clearly voter suppression and intimidation early on in the 60s, right, are keeping the black vote down. But it seems like the white vote is sort of decreasing. I don't know.
No, that's a good thing. We always want less
what
white
you're
people
seeing
voting, whatever
between
demo they're in.
2006 and 2010 is the first African American running for president.
Yeah.
But it happens earlier than that, too,
It
right?
starts
like 2002.
That does start. Maybe that's backlash to Bush.
86.
It's weird that 2016 is, that's congressional. Never mind. But there was a good article by Malika Jabali in Current Affairs talking about the decrease in voting among black voters in 2016 and all the different reasons why that is.
No use crying over spilt mayo.
Meanwhile, however, in Arizona, Kristen Sinema, it depends on which poll you look at, but Kristen Sinema up in the NBC Marist poll on October 30th was at 50%, McSally at 44%. I just saw another one that shows Sinema down to McSally by a couple of points. Here is Martha McSally she's on Sean Hannity's program, right? And this radio program. And this gives you a sense of what is going on. I think this is indicative. Her plight, I guess, in regards to healthcare is indicative of what we're seeing with a lot of Republicans across the country. It is a function of Democrats running on healthcare. And here is Martha McSally on Hannity's show.
Including building the wall. Yes, sir.
Would you vote to repeal Obamacare, the vote that John McCain decided to change his mind on?
Well, Sean, I did vote to repeal and replace Obamacare on that House bill. I'm getting my ass kicked for it right now because it's being misconstrued by the Democrats. They're trying to, invoke fear in people who have family members.
Well, wait a minute. I know Arizona. How many Arizonans lost their plans, lost their doctors, and are paying infinitely higher rates because of Obamacare?
Yes. Obamacare has failed in Arizona. There's only one choice in 14 of 15 counties, which is no choice. People lost their health care coverage. We have people right now with pre-existing conditions who can't get access to health insurance because of the failures of Obamacare. So I worked hard to make sure that we're moving away from that and towards something that gives more choice for people, more flexibility at the state level, more free market, get the federal government, to not be doing this one-size-fits-all top-down penalties, taxes, and mandates. It's failed. And so I voted yes. Again, I've got millions of dollars attacking me right now, misconstruing that vote. I voted to protect people with pre-existing conditions. That's good intentions, but their policies are wrong. We need more conservative policies to bring the cost down and provide more options for people to get access to insurance.
All right, Martha McSally, a rock star, hero who served her country.
She sounded like a rock star, whining about ads and telling obvious lies with conservative word gibberish. That's a rock star.
What was impressive, too, was Sean Hannity. We just watched her being on-air disciplined by a talk radio show host, where she regretfully voted to cancel it and then had to back off that and pretend that the vote... we all know what the vote was, right? We have 20 Republican states right now suing the government to get rid of pre-existing conditions protections, to get rid of the protection for you if you're under 26 and being on your parents' plan, to get rid of lifetime and yearly caps, to get rid of the preventing recession. And so they're fighting an uphill battle. They're able to convince the people in the Fox world. And you can hear, the comments. You read all these things from voters or interviews in lines at these rallies and whatnot, and they just regurgitate word for word what they hear on Republican media, Fox, online, and they're not going to move from that. But broadly speaking, people know that they wanted to replace it for 7 years. They voted 57 times, was it, to replace it, repeal and replace, but they never came up with a replacement. And so...
And Graham Cassidy, which was the bill they settled on in the end, would absolutely strip people protection for people's pre-existing
Right, that was
conditions.
The skinny repeal.
And in addition to slashing Medicaid in a way that not only, if I recall correctly, not only would it get rid of the expansion under Obamacare, but actually cut Medicaid in the long term.
Yes. However, at the very least, in terms of Medicaid, and this is, like I say, there were two parts of the Affordable Care Act. There was three parts in total to the Affordable Care Act. Well, I guess it depends on how you count it, four maybe. There was the patient protections, which we've just outlined. Those things that insurance cannot do and still consider itself to be insurance, right? I can sell you a car. If it doesn't have an engine. Legally, we can't call it a car. And the patient protections part of the ACA PPI was a success, in my estimation. The expansion of Medicaid, wasn't as it ultimately it could be even more successful. We'll talk about that in a moment. The affordable care part, the affordable part, not so much.
But that's really because you needed the public option. In the original design of it, right, the public option would help keep that price down.
The public option would maybe. The public option would have basically presented in many states a government-funded alternative that would theoretically compete, and because it doesn't have the profit motive, would compete against people.
And that's Hacker's case. Jacob Hacker definitely.
Well, Hacker was the one who developed the plan
right,
for all
and
three
he
of them.
Said it would keep that. There's a price mechanism there.
Yes, that would have provided cost controls on some level. I mean, really, what it was really supposed to be an example of what a buy-in Medicare essentially would look like in these markets. Remember, there's only 11 million people in the country who buy Obamacare. There's only 11 million people who buy insurance over the exchanges. There's another 11 million, so maybe a million or two off on one way or the other, who have expanded Medicaid. And then everybody else gets the patient protections in some measure of cost control relative to what it was before. But it's controlling the rate of increase, not the actual cost. And so in terms of how it impacts people, in terms of cost, it really doesn't feel like it has saved anybody any money. And to the extent that it has, it only has saved it really theoretically. Which, that and the theoretical savings and a dime will get you a phone call if you can find a payphone. But with that said, there could be millions more who end up with Medicaid. Gillum in Florida is looking good. He's going to pull Bill Nelson over the finish line. It looks like. Now, none of this. Please don't take anything I'm saying as a license not to vote or to get cocky about any of this, because none of it is. Kansas. There's a possibility in Kansas. Cordray in Ohio is looking good.
Those are big ones. I mean, for obvious reasons. I mean, Ohio because it's Ohio, and I think people always need to remember. Kobach. He's one of the lead apartheid advocates of this country, and he really needs to be beat.
He needs to be beat. Now that may get screwed up by a guy named Orman, who is a Kansas businessman, undoubtedly taking votes from both of them. Probably more from Kobach than I would imagine Kelly, but I don't know. Could be screwing up. Could be more from Kelly.
He's not a good influence, I don't think.
No. Abrams in Georgia She was up by 1 point in the Fox 5 Atlanta Opinion Savvy. I mean, I don't know
No, she'll win that race if Brian Kemp doesn't steal it.
I mean,
definitely.
There's no way to measure in these polls ballot suppression. Right. There's just no way to measure it. And so
he's running purely on vote stealing.
The bottom line is what you should be doing is using the show as a source of entertainment as you walk around and knock on people's doors right now, or in between the phone calls that you're making on behalf of people. This is do or die time in terms of these midterms. You got 1 week. This is the time to do it.
Fun things happen. My friend Jenna just posted a picture. She's in canvassing in Georgia, and she just was out with Michael B. Jordan. So
there you go.
Look at things. Great things happen when you canvass.
Oprah is there too. You may
Oprah's going.
Yeah. Okay, one last story before we go into the fun half here. Apparently, and this is sort of funny. No, I'm sorry. This is totally funny. So apparently, this guy Jack Burkman. And if I remember correctly, I think I've done some TV with this guy about 10 years ago. He was on like CNBC, and he was arguing something to the effect of like there was no deep throat or something to it was fake or this guy is a little bit off the wall.
He had an alternative theory about Mark Felt.
Yeah, like right before Mark Felt like actually was revealed. Like it was or something that it was a lie, that Woodward and Bernstein had said all along that it wasn't Mark Felt, so it couldn't be Mark Felt. But he had an announcement that he posted. What was this? When did he post this? The other day?
Yeah, this was when they announced this.
This is a couple of days ago. And this is pretty big stuff. You can understand why he is not in his studio. He probably does a show not unlike this one, but with probably far more big dollar backing than we get and far less viewers. But here he is. He's out and about. He's got a Starbucks coffee and his North Face Parker on, and here we go.
Hey guys, Jack Burkman here. As you can see, I'm not in the Behind the Curtain studio. Rather, I'm here at my favorite Starbucks.
The name of his show is Behind the Curtain.
I think I argued with this guy on that I-24 channel.
Very possible.
Rather, I'm here at my favorite Starbucks in Arlington, Virginia, right near Arlington National Cemetery, where we often broadcast. Remember, if you like us on Facebook, subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast. Thursday will be a sad, but hopefully very hopeful day. On Thursday, high noon, at the Holiday Inn right here in Arlington, Virginia, right behind me, only about 1,000 yards that way, we will unveil the first of the sex assault victims of Robert Mueller. It turns out, as many of you know, Robert Mueller is a bad guy, not just because of what he does in the courtroom, but because of what he does outside of the courtroom. Robert Mueller has done bad things to a number of women, the first of whom is coming out this Thursday, high noon. She will unveil a very bad sexual assault, and more to come.
Pause it 1 second. She's going to unveil a very bad sexual assault?
At high noon.
It's going to be like Warhol.
She will unveil a very bad sexual assault, and more to come. We've interviewed many. The investigation is ongoing. This isn't something I take any delight in. It's something I wish I didn't have to do, but my viewers and the American people need the truth. Remember, if you like us on Facebook, subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast. Thanks. We'll see you next time on Behind the Curtain.
So the funny thing about this story, and don't forget, you can get the Majority Report on iTunes or anywhere you get your podcast. So it turns out that this story about women who are coming out to charge Robert Mueller with some type of sexual assault has been pitched to a lot of reporters. And somebody got word that one of the women had been paid a significant amount of money to claim that she was sexually assaulted by Robert Mueller. And it turns out that And now you got to follow here. This is a little bit tricky. Apparently, this guy, Jack Burkman, got this information from an intelligence agency, one of the private intelligence agencies that are out there. I'm sure you're all aware of these. One of them is entitled Surefire Intelligence. Now, you know that they get their intelligence is always correct because they're surefire.
Sounds like an agency for like kid spies that you would find when you're like 11. Surefire.
We can call it Surefire.
We call it Surefire. I watched Top Gun. Now let's go figure out who stole the milk.
And so it turns out that they went to a couple reporters. I guess one of these guys, Krasenstein, who has some type of a blog.
Apparently called Hill Reporter.
Hill Reporter. So he's not a reporter for the Hill, but it's always written as Hill's reporter, Robert Krasenstein, which
That's
I think is
awesome.
So brilliant. Anyways, to this guy's credit, he looked into this Surefire Intelligence. And when he did, afterwards, according to NBC News, Krasenstein said he reached out to the special counsel's office on Tuesday, telling them what he knew about the scheme. Now, Burkman, you should also know, was one of those guys who was involved in pitching conspiracy theories about Democratic staffer Seth Rich. Now, that could happen. That, of course, is a transpartisan endeavor. But leaving that aside for a moment. So Krasenstein told NBC News that he told the special counsel. The special counsel has now referred this to the FBI. Krasenstein also gave NBC News the phone numbers used by the woman alleging she was offered money to make the allegations. Both of them were disconnected. The woman allegedly worked at the law firm Pillsbury, Madison, and Sutro at the same time as Mueller in 1974. Reporters say, and there are multiple reporters who received this, said that she was supposed to claim the misconduct took place during that period. Now, a couple of things. One, the date in which that misconduct supposedly took place was a date that it just so happens that Robert Mueller was serving on a jury. NBC News gave the woman's name to a spokesperson for the law firm, which is now called Pillsbury Winthrop Shaw Pittman, and the spokesperson said, we have no record of this individual working for our firm. So it's unclear what was going on here, whether they were trying to both get mileage out of the accusation 5 days before the election and then discredit the news outlets that reported on it by making the whole thing fall apart like a twofer. These guys are top notch. But let's look into this Surefire Intelligence. It turns out that Jacob Wall, who is a disgraced hedge fund manager.
It's a bit redundant.
Turned pro-Trump conspiracy theorist. Turns out is the main impetus behind Surefire Intelligence. This is what Jack Burkman said when Krasenstein called Burkman. And Wall tweeted that day, several media sources tell me that a scandalous story about Mueller is breaking tomorrow. Should be interesting. Stay tuned. So somebody reached Wall by direct message on Twitter. Wall denied having a hand in any plot to pay women making false allegations against Mueller. I don't have any involvement in investigations of any kind. I'm not quite that cool.
That's a
Surefire Intelligence sounds pretty cool. Now, Wall is just a writer. He writes for Gateway Pundit, which is a right-wing blog that also is a huge conspiracy theory trafficker. And in fact, at Gateway Pundit, they had access to, according to them, exclusive documents about a very credible witness, which they were going to release in this Mueller scandal. Are people being able to follow what I'm saying here? So this Surefire Intelligence provided this information to Jack Burkman. And this guy, Jacob Wall, supposedly was involved with Surefire Intelligence, claims he wasn't. He is a writer for Gateway Pundit. They were going to have these exclusive documents. And then NBC did a little investigation. His email is listed, Jacob Wall's, in the domain records for Surefire Intelligence website. That's weird. To be completely uninvolved with an outfit and have registered their website, particularly when you're not like...
Man, Soros is good.
A website. Oh, it's so good. Here's the other part. Wall stopped responding to NBC News after being told that NBC News found that Surefire's official phone number redirects to Jacob Wall's mother's voicemail. So then what happens is somebody starts to investigate. Not only does it find that the online presence is redirects to Jacob Wall's email address, they looked at the pictures of Matthew Cohen, who's a managing partner at Surefire Intelligence.
It's a beautiful name.
Yeah. Now, his image is like just a silhouette. You can see that on top.
It's a standard spy image.
But apparently, Jacob Wall does not realize that there are things called reverse image lookup on the web. And it brought up a picture of Jacob Wall, which looks almost identical to the picture of Matthew Cohen, except for it looks like there were two pictures, one where the light was turned on and one where the light was turned off. But you could see the silhouette there. But it's not only that Jacob Wall's pictures on there. Let's look at some of the other officials at Surefire Intelligence. Oh, we don't have that. Well, it turns out like their managing partner has a striking resemblance to an Israeli supermodel. It turns out that their chief of operations has a striking resemblance to a photographer and other male model. In fact, all of the pictures on the website of Surefire are fake ones.
Isn't there one of the actor Christoph Waltz?
That's right. He is their chief investigator in Zurich, apparently.
Wow, multi-talented guy.
Yeah, here we go. Here is the Surefire Intelligence Tel Aviv station chief. She happens to be yeah, she just happens to be. Now, to be fair, these are great covers for intelligence, private intelligence officials. It's just that you don't want to blow their cover on your LinkedIn profile.
These are very high-placed assets.
Yes.
And Wool just burned all of
He
them.
burned
just
all
burned
of them.
Bar Raffaele.
So,
how's she going to make a living as only a model now?
Burkman is apparently still holding his press conference as of today, but Gateway Pundit has decided they're not going to release these exclusive documents quite yet. They're going to check out the situation. In fact, I think what they said at the end was, let's see. Gateway Pundit has now posted a message on its site that says, earlier today, we were given information on accusations against former FBI Director Robert Mueller. We took the documents down and are currently investigating these accusations. There are also serious allegations against Jacob Wall. We're also looking into this.
Looking into it, gonna figure out what the hell's going on.
Figure it out. It's been hard. It's been tough stuff.
I put the cover up.
Wow. Don't we love Bar Raffaele?
She is so good and such one of our best intelligence people that we have. One of our best private intelligence people.
It's amazing, Christopher Waugh. He's so good pretending he's intelligence in the movie.
And they had the worst cover-up ever. And where it should have stopped is at the deal standpoint, where they thought about it.
That's right. That's probably true. All right, folks. We're going to head into the fun half. I should tell you, today is Halloween, which is a great day to become a member of the Majority Report. You can do so at jointhemajorityreport.com. Yesterday was Tuesday. What happened on Tuesday, Michael?
Well, Tuesday was the Michael Brooks show. We had
Waz. I should tell non-members. We're going to make this a freebie Wednesday because it's Halloween. So if you're a member, if you're not a member, you will have access to the fun half today.
Stay tuned.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
No problem. Big Waz, co-host of Count the Dings, my co-host of Woke Bros podcast. We talked about, is Kanye leaving the sunken place? He's really upset about this Blexit scandal. Listen to it. It was funny. And actually a good conversation of sneaker culture and capitalism. We talked about why Beto O'Rourke can reach out to black voters, but Hillary can't, even though they both do silly pandering. What's the difference? Harvey K came on. We talked about MLK, power and love, and the left, and a socialist case for American exceptionalism. We had a debate and a lot on the post game, plus how to build a global left. Patreon.com/TMBS. And please check out our YouTube channel. Lots of clips there now. Michael Brooks Show on YouTube.
Jamie?
So today on the Antifada, it's a very special Halloween episode with our awesome guest, the Lit Crit Guy. We talk about Gothic Marxism and how we can use the Gothic to understand the world and expose the horrors of life under capitalism. We talk about some horror movies from this year, including Mandy and Hereditary. Kind of give our takes on those movies. We talk about vampires, zombies, bloodsuckers like Peter Thiel, the dialectical tension between goth and punk, and whether or not I am a reactionary hypocrite for dressing like a witch and listening to Joy Division. So check it out.
There you go. And Matt, are you a revolutionary hypocrite or a reactionary hypocrite?
Oh, I don't know. I still have a lot of research into those questions. But my history of the Pequot War, Summary of the Mystic Massacre, is up. It's available on YouTube right now. So a Literary Hangover, check it out on YouTube. Subscribe, folks. There it is.
Oh, and I wanted to just... we have a guest in studio today. His name is Brondon. Brondon's going to hang with us for the fun half. And I just wanted to point out that Brondon, it turns out, is a fan of another show. I'm not going to say what that show is on YouTube. Jimmy Dore. And
wow.
Even though I don't agree with the message that show sends out, we're heading into the midterms. I think it is pretty detrimental to be out there saying that you shouldn't vote against the lesser of two evils in a situation.
For the lesser of two evils.
For the lesser of two evils. That seems pretty irresponsible to me and short-sighted and stupid. But there's a lot of that dumb-dumbness. I'm not, Brondon, I'm not saying you or one of your favorite shows, but that dumbness there. But I wanted to show that we are magnanimous and are not so petty.
Not so petty.
As to hang on to little things like that.
No one could accuse us of arrogance or pettiness.
Right? Are we in any way smug or arrogant or like condescending to you?
You guys have been pretty nice, but the difference between a right jab and a left hook is the difference between the Republican and Democratic Party. They both come from the same box.
Okay, all right. Well, Brondon, that's great.
Jesus Christ.
That's great. But my point was that we, I think, are being magnanimous. We're not going to, pick on people that we think are just putting toxic dumbness into the world. But hey, do me a favor. Please don't chew on that wire. Please don't chew on that cable.
Dude, what are you
wait
doing?
a second. Don't chew on the cable and put your hand in that water jar. I don't even know why that water jar would be on that desk. But that could create an electric shock that could in some way, it's Halloween. When you have that type of electric current running, people can metamorphosize into, oh my God, no! Oh no!
Acceleration!